everybody. Welcome to Bayou Bets. It is Thursday, January the 4th, 2024, our second show of the new year. And I'm Jim Derry along with Thomas Casale. Gabe Henderson and Spencer the Guru will be along in just a minute. Before we get to our topics of the day, we remind you that Caesars Sportsbook is the official odds partner of bet.NOLA.com. And we ask you can always find out what time we're going on every time we've got a live show by subscribing to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. Always there. Just go and click on it and subscribe. What is going on, Tom?
Not too much. Before we came on, you said you were cooking some gumbo, you know.
I am.
But I came back from New Orleans. I told the kids, I said, I had something that is as good as I've ever eaten in my life called gumbo. You got to send me the recipe. They want me to make them gumbo now.
And look, if I can do it, you can do it. Because my wife is the chef of the family, but for some reason she lets me cook the gumbo. And it is definitely gumbo weather here in New Orleans. I'm sure it's going to be colder than that in New York. I'm looking for my sister lives in Springfield, Mass, and she sent me the I hate you emoji yesterday because they're supposed to get like 10 inches of snow this weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What about you guys?
Nah, we're still in the no snow section. We haven't gotten anything yet, and I think what she's getting, we're supposed to get maybe 1 inch.
Okay. Well, they're getting it on, I think, Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah,
over the weekend. It's going to affect a lot of these NFL games here. We're going to talk about that later on. A lot of these games are going to have snow, wind, nasty rain, all kinds of stuff. That is going to affect spreads and lines, and we're going to talk about it. You get the advantage here first. But one game we know that won't be affected by any snow, any wind, any rain, any ice, any of that stuff with the Saints and the Falcons. And because that's being played inside the Caesars Superdome on Sunday, the Saints have a chance, unbelievably, at this point, they have about a 25 to 30% chance to move on and advance to the playoffs. We'll talk about that first. Will they survive? Will they beat the Atlanta Falcons? And will the Panthers give the Saints a late Christmas present and beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? We'll talk about that in a little bit. We're also going to talk about all of the division titles that are on the line. There are 4 of them. 4 out of 8 division titles have not been settled yet. We'll talk about that, especially the marquee matchup on Sunday night, Bills-Dolphins. Who do we like in that one? We're going to get into that. And, of course, we're going to talk about the CFP National Championship game on Monday night, Michigan and Washington in Houston. Maybe Gabe can entertain some Michigan, Washington fans. We'll see how that goes. And then we're going to release our big bucks. We've been doing a lot better, a lot more green on the board, and our turkey of the week. We'll talk about all that coming up. But first, it's the New Orleans Saints, and they have no matter what you think of them, Tom, they have a legitimate chance to make the playoffs. Their best chance lies in winning the NFC South on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, they made it all the way here. Listen, I have a hard time figuring this team out. You've been on them the last 2 weeks. You said that they would not compete well against the Rams, and you thought they would beat the Bucs. So you were right on both of those accounts. It's just a hard team to figure out. And I think I'm just having troubles. I thought they were by far the best team in the division all year. And I just kept waiting for them. And it didn't happen. And then last week we saw, hey, this is what it could look like when they put everything together.
And I think, like I said last week, the reason why I liked them is I think a lot of the pressure was off of them. I mean, realistically, having a 10% chance of making the playoffs, they see all those things. They did the same thing last year. When they lost to Tampa Bay, they were still mathematically alive, but pretty much left for dead. And they played well and won 3 games in a row. So, we'll get to our predictions in a minute, but that's why I thought last week was easier to predict. This week, not so easy to predict because actually the Falcons still have a chance to make the playoffs too. If they win, they're also rooting for the Panthers to beat the Bucs because if the Falcons can win this game and the Bucs lose on Sunday, then it's the Falcons who will represent the NFC South, which is hard to believe because Arthur Smith might be the worst coach in the NFL that's still there.
Yeah, no, it's been a crazy year in this division. And I think it all depends on which Saints team shows up. Do we see the Saints team from last week? That what happened last Sunday is what I thought all season. I thought the Saints were the best team in the division, and I thought Baker Mayfield was trash. And for some reason, the Bucs were playing well, and it just wasn't making any sense to me. But that's what I thought the year was going to look like was last Sunday. And I think if the Saints come to play again this week, listen, I think the Falcons, I agree with you about Arthur Smith. I'll give them a little bit of credit for having the team in this position. I think they're more of a next year team. They got to go out and get a quarterback. But I agree with you. His game day coaching, yikes, sometimes.
It's been awful. It really has. It's been awful. And actually, that goes in a long line of Falcons coaches. He's not the only one. I don't know. Maybe it's Arthur Blank because he doesn't have any clue of how to hire a coach. Every coach he's hired has been terrible. And that goes back to Mike Smith, who was, man, when he got fired, we were really upset here in New Orleans.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Awful coach. I mean, he's worse than Arthur Smith. All right, Jeff says, in predicting this game, and I agree with him wholeheartedly, good things come for those who wait. Maybe, is it going to be good enough? We don't know. And I think the key to this game for the Saints is being able to run the football, and I couldn't agree more. I don't like the Alvin Kamara injury either. You got to think he's going to play unless he just absolutely can't. But you look at the Saints, they've got to be able to run the ball against this defense. The Falcons have a decent defense. They've been really good against the pass, but they're only 19th against the run. They haven't been good again on the road. So I think Kamara and Taysom, like last week when I said it was a Derek Carr kind of game, it was, and he stepped up to the challenge. I think this week is a Kamara/Taysom kind of game. Jamal Williams has been playing better as well. They've got to be able to run the football in this game.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Falcons. The Falcons have been kind of you take them at home as an underdog kind of team this year, where they play a lot better. They haven't been good on the road. They've played 3 different quarterbacks. They're not going to win this game offensively, but like we saw in the first game with the Saints, if they can create turnovers, if they can bog the Saints down in the red zone, I think that's their path to victory.
And the Saints were 0 for 5, I believe, in the red zone the last time they played Atlanta. So obviously that is key as well. Was Derek Carr fully healthy? I'm not sure, but he has no excuses in this game for sure. Look, there's a lot to go here, a lot to talk about with this. Daniel says he thinks we make the dance. They're either going to be the 4th seed or the 7th seed. And I'm going to tell you, the headline says their real chance to make the playoffs lies in winning the NFC South, and I'm going to tell you why. Because, like we told you earlier, the Saints need to win. The Panthers need to beat the Bucs. The chances of that, according to Vegas, if you did a money line bet on the Saints and the Panthers to do a parlay, you'd get plus 365. That equates to about a 25% chance somewhere in that ballpark. So the 1 in 4 chance for the Saints to win and for the Panthers to win, according to Caesars Sportsbook, if you do the equation and the math and the implied odds. Now, the Saints to sneak in at the wild card. If the Saints win and the Panthers don't win, if it's the Bucs that win and they clinch the NFC South, the Saints do still have a chance because they'll be all Saints fans, all Hoodats will be watching the 325 games because then they will need Seattle to lose to the Arizona Cardinals on the road. Seattle is on the road in the desert. And they will also need the Green Bay Packers to lose at home to the Chicago Bears. Both are possible. Green Bay is a 3-point favorite over Chicago, and Seattle's a 3-point favorite over the Cardinals. But I did a moneyline parlay on that as well. Saints to win, Arizona to win, and Chicago to win. And that comes out to about plus 785. So you're talking about double or half the chances, I should say. That's about 12% chance. So overall, if you put it all together, come up with about a 27 to 30% chance for the Saints to make the playoffs. And it starts with the Saints winning the game. You don't like those numbers, you don't like those odds, but it sure beats what it was last week.
Yeah, and let's be honest. If you're let's say the Bucs win the division. I don't think that those two teams losing is out of the realm of possibility. I personally, right now, I think the Bears are better than the Packers. I think they're the better overall team. Now, they never beat the Packers, so you have that going against you. And then you look at the Cardinals. At the very least, you have a team that hasn't quit, who's still playing hard at home, where you want Seattle on the road. I mean, is it likely? No, but if you had to bank on those two things happening, there's at least a chance in the late games to give you a reason to watch.
So you're saying there's a chance. There is a chance. If you look at these numbers in this matchup before we move on, and Saints-Falcons, and I put these things on the screen every week, the Saints had a clear advantage over the Buccaneers. That's why I didn't understand the line, the Saints being a 3-point underdog. But then coming home, maybe these 3 points are a little bit much because the Saints and Falcons really are what and what. And you're talking about a rivalry game. I'm not sure that I think 3 points isn't a little bit too much. I'd like to see it more around. I think 2 would be a more realistic number.
Yeah, these teams are pretty even, Jim. You can even see them in the numbers here on the screen that you put up. Yeah, the only, I think, where you say, okay, where the Saints have the edges at quarterback. Again, I don't care what you think about Derek Carr. He's miles better than anything that the Falcons trot out there at quarterback. So I know you said they think that you think they have to run the ball, but I do think that the Saints having the best quarterback on the field, if he plays
There's
well,
no doubt
I think they win.
There's no doubt that's true. All right, Daniel says it's a Jimmy Graham kind of day. Maybe. I think that's a little wishful thinking. Tomcat, speaking of the opposite of wishful thinking, the Saints aren't making it. We'll see what I think in just a minute. John Johansson, if they make the playoffs, they'll get drilled in the first playoff game, too inconsistent, and rarely play as a team. You know what, Joey? I disagree. I'm going to tell you why. I said before that I thought if the Saints made the playoffs and won the NFC South, they would get drilled, but that's when I thought they were going to play Dallas.
Yeah.
Now it looks like they would play Philly, and I actually think the Saints have a decent would have it. I think any team that wins the NFC South is going to have a decent chance at home against a banged-up Philly team that is going in the absolute wrong direction. I think Philly will win this week. I think they'll beat the Giants, but we're going to get to the NFC East in just a minute. But Philly's going the wrong way. I actually think this is if whoever wins the NFC South is happy that Dallas is going to win the division. They won't have to play them right off the bat. Waste of time. Okay. Every time y'all show that just confirms it. I'm not sure what we're a waste of time, but we thank you for joining us and wasting your time with us. We appreciate you for doing that. All right, before we move on, we're going to give our Saints predictions at the end. What do you think about Bucs Panthers?
Yeah, and real quick though, I know the Saints are saying they have no chance if they get in. Go talk to the Philly fans right now. See what they think.
100%.
They're saying the same thing about the Eagles. So I agree with you. If it was the Cowboys, I'd say good night. Dallas has just got too much for them. But the way the Eagles are playing right now, I think you got a chance. Listen, the Panthers are terrible. They're just terrible. They are still playing somewhat hard. I think things have to go their way, like in that Falcons game. It's got to be an ugly. Baker Mayfield would have to play really bad 2 weeks in a row, like he did last week. I don't know. I actually kind of like the other scenario a little bit better, to be honest with you.
I heard a stat earlier today that Baker Mayfield in his career as a favorite is 13-26 against the spread. He just doesn't play well as a favorite. He doesn't play well on the road. And the shot that Tyrann Mathieu gave him in the ribs, I think, is going to really come into play there. I'm not saying the Panthers are going to win. I'll give you my thoughts on that game in just a little bit, maybe as a closing thought, because I do have thoughts on that game. But I tell you, the Panthers play much better at home. They have no reason to lose this game. Number one, their picks going to the Chicago Bears, so they don't get to keep their number one pick. And number two, they've already got the number one pick locked up. So even their later picks, they're locked into that number one spot. So it's not like they're going to move down any. They have no reason to lose. I think they're going to go out and give it their best effort. It should be an interesting game. I don't know. We'll find out. All right. We want to move on because there's lots of things to talk about today. Again, we're going to finish the show. When all four of us are on here, we'll give you our Saints, Falcons / Tampa Bay Panthers predictions. We'll tell you whether we think the Saints are going to make the playoffs. We'll have all four of us get a chance to do that at the end of the show, so stick around for that. We have plenty of other things to talk about beyond that. There are a lot of other playoff scenarios going on, Tom, and there are 4 division titles, 3 other ones besides the NFC South. You got the AFC South, the AFC East, and the NFC East. Then the NFC East we'll just kind of gloss over. Dallas is playing Washington. Philly's playing the Giants. I almost had Philly -5 in my best bets because I do think they will play better this week. But I decided to leave them out because if for some reason, if Dallas is beating Washington big in this game, I don't think that's going to happen. I actually think Washington's going to cover, and I think it's going to be tight. But if Dallas were to take a big lead, I could see Philly saying, you know what, we're just going to pull our starters.
Yeah, and, my son's an Eagles fan, and I was talking to him last weekend, and I said, there's something wrong with this team that we don't really know what it is. And I said, the game that they needed to turn it around was Seattle. Like, you lose to the Niners and then the Cowboys in Dallas. Listen, those are 2 tough teams. You played a tough stretch there, but you looked at that Seattle game with Drew Lock at quarterback. That was the game that you thought, okay, they're going to get things right here. And they just never have. So I think it's interesting. I got to tell you what, it would have been if they had switched those games up and the Eagles were playing the Cowboys, then we would have really had something in Week 18.
That'd have been fun for sure. Look, I think Dallas wins, but I know this sounds crazy, but it wouldn't shock me at all if the Commanders in their final game play. They love Ron Rivera. Unlike a lot of teams who are losing their coach, they can't wait to lose their coach. It's the reason why some of these teams play better when they fire the coach midseason because they couldn't wait for him to be gone. McDaniels in Las Vegas is a perfect example of why they played better. Buffalo played better when Joe Brady became the OC. You can go down to Antonio Pierce when he took over McDaniels, as we said. They loved Antonio Pierce. So, look, I just think that they're going to go out fighting, knowing that this is the last game for Ron Rivera as a head coach, maybe in his career. I mean, he's not getting any younger. He may not get another chance to be a head coach. So we'll see what happens. But I think that one's going to be a little bit closer than people think. But I do think that in the end, Dallas will win the NFC East and be the 2 seed going forward. What about the AFC South? You have Jacksonville, and I didn't put it on the screen, but Jacksonville's playing the Titans. Talk about potential last games. You got Derrick Henry with his potential last game for the Titans. I don't think anyone would be shocked if Mike Vrabel were fired. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but I mean, we sit here on the Monday after the season's over and go, we always have a wow moment, don't we? And that could be the wow moment. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Mike Vrabel's going to be fired. So do the Tennessee Titans play hard, and is it going to be an emotional game? Or is Jacksonville, it looks like Trevor Lawrence is coming back. Will they be more effective? They're not on the screen, but Jacksonville is, I believe, a 5.5 to 6 point favorite.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch that game. I certainly wouldn't lay the points with Jacksonville with the way they're playing right now. And I will say this, Tennessee's a team, like, where are they going? You know what I mean? Like, when you look at them, like, where's their direction? So if they wanted to start over, I could see, I think they give Vrabel one more year, but, they keep drafting quarterbacks. They got to make a move here soon.
Well, Gabe says Vrabel would be the hottest name on the streets if he's fired. I don't know why. I mean, I like Mike Vrabel and all, and yeah, maybe he's a potential New England coach. Is it Bill Belichick's last game? We don't know, but I got to be honest. Mike Vrabel has had a couple seasons where he kind of let things slip through his fingers. That game where that year where they were the 1 seed, they fought that way through and probably overachieved to become the 1 seed, but then played like dogs in the playoffs. To me, that was insane. So I mean, I don't know if somebody's going to give him a job for sure if he gets fired. But I agree with you. If this isn't it, next year is his last chance. And to put all your eggs in the Will Levis basket without Derrick Henry, good luck with that. The other game I think is more interesting, obviously, Saturday night. And this is in my big buck, so I don't want to talk about it too much. But I want to get your thoughts on Houston and Indianapolis.
Yeah, I put it. It's in I have a version of it in my big bucks. It's not nothing huge, but listen. Here's the thing: that if you find somebody who's betting the Colts, that's like finding Bigfoot. Like everybody on earth is betting Houston, right? Everybody loves Houston. I think this is going to be a close, competitive game. I think the Colts have been undervalued all season. I think they're well coached. I think both teams are well coached. I think this is going to go down on the wire here, and I give Texans a slight lean because of their quarterback if he's back to normal. I thought he was a little rusty last week. They dominated that game, though. I give a slight lean to the Texans, but I don't know why like 97% or whatever the money is on Houston. That doesn't really make sense to me. I don't see it as that one-sided.
It is most certainly 97%. That's exactly what it is. I think these two coaches, I think you have to give Coach of the Year to Kevin Stefanski. But I think what both of these rookie head coaches have done, they have injected life into their franchises, and they have helped turn things around, both of these guys. I got to be honest. I was probably more wrong about C.J. Stroud than any other player in the NFL. But that being said, if you would have told me the Colts were going to be in the race for the AFC South title at the end of the season, I would have told you were absolutely out of your mind, bonkers crazy. I would have gave the Texans more of a chance than the Colts. I mean, so what Shane Steichen has done there has been amazing. So this is going to be a very interesting game. I'm glad they put this in prime time. I will absolutely be watching on Saturday night. I'm looking forward to that. And then the big one, the NFC and the AFC East, Bills and Dolphins, Sunday night, the final game of the NFL regular season, Bills and Dolphins. This, too, is in my big buck, so I'm not going to go into this one at all. This is actually my best bet of the week, so I'm going to make you wait a little bit. But your thoughts on Bills and Dolphins?
I think the Bills are a little overvalued here. Maybe it's because I don't really I just trying to look at, okay, so I think they're still carrying the momentum of beating the Cowboys.
Right.
They made Easton Stick look like Joe Montana, and he is terrible. Last week, listen, the Patriots kind of outplayed them. Bailey Zappi gave them the ball over and over again. I think it's an interesting game. I think there's some value here on Miami. The problem is they're just so beat up. You wonder if they have enough in this game. So this is something I'll probably bet live. I kind of want to see how that first quarter goes. But hey, listen, give the Bills credit. They were down and out a few weeks ago, and they stormed back, and now they have a chance to win the division.
Can't wait to watch this one. It's going to be a lot of fun. Josh Kelly against Tua Tagovailoa. He looks like he's getting a little bit healthier. But meanwhile, as you said, the Finns do have a ton of injuries. How would that play in? Obviously, Vegas thinks it's going to play in deeply. For this line to be that big at Miami at home says a whole lot. I find it interesting. Again, it's my number one pick in my big bucks. I'll get to it in a little bit. All right, before we get to big bucks, and we have a ton of NFL picks. Again, we're going to wrap up the show with our picks for the Saints, and we're going to tell you, all four of us are going to tell you whether we think the Saints will make the playoffs or not. That's coming up a little bit. But first, we got to spend about 5 to 7 minutes on the college football playoffs, national championship, Monday night in Houston, Michigan versus Washington. Will it be the Michigan defense that plays big, or will it be Michael Penix?
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup. On paper, I know it looks like Michigan. I will say this. The best passing quarterback Michigan has faced is Kyle McCord, who was at Ohio State. All right. Now, when you look at Washington, they have an NFL quarterback. They have 3 NFL receivers. And listen, they have the nation's top offensive line. They won the award for the best offensive line. That's a lot to work with on offense. When Michael Penix goes to the NFL, he's going to drop down in talent with all this, talent Washington has. So I think the way you do have to beat Michigan is to get the ball down the field on their corners. You can't play sideline to sideline with them. They're just too fast. If Penix has time in this game, it's going to be interesting.
Look, I think J.J. McCarthy stinks, but when you look at Washington's the amount of yards they're giving up per game and almost 400 yards per game. Now, look, granted, they play in the Pac-12, but that in a way that makes it worse. I know they had to play Oregon twice and they had to play Bo Nix twice, but really, other than Bo Nix and last week against Texas, who have they really played? Hardly anyone. So that's a really high number.
Yeah.
And that's I know Michigan's going to be able to run the ball on them as well. They give up 194 rushing yards per game. But at the same time, it's hard to bet against Penix. This is a game that I wouldn't touch with a stick. I may have a little fun with it on Monday night when I'm bored at poker and put a couple bucks on one way or the other. But only because I'm a true degenerate. I don't even have a lean in this game. I want Washington to win, so I guess I'm slightly tilted towards the Huskies, but I only think it's because that's what I want to happen. Gabe was talking about in pre-production about how he tried to find a way to pick Washington but couldn't, ended up picking Michigan. To me, the only thing you need to pick Washington is Jim Harbaugh. I think Jim Harbaugh, he won last week, and I'll give him credit. He had some gutsy moments there at the end and made it happen, and Alabama just kind of helped him. Alabama helped him. But I just don't like him in this game at all, in the national championship game. It's the game he's been waiting for basically his entire life, even more than the Super Bowl. I think and I just don't like him in this spot. So, again, I think Michigan is clearly the better team, but because of Penix and because of Harbaugh, I just can't bet it that way.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about Harbaugh that rubs me the wrong way sometimes is he coaches like he's smarter than everybody else.
Yeah.
Like bringing in the backup quarterback to run a draw up the middle, that's a waste of a play. It's a waste of a play, and he did it twice. Listen, you're playing Alabama. You got to take every opportunity you have. You got to take advantage of it. And I thought the third quarter, he really let Alabama get back in the game. Now, I do like the way they played Jalen Milroe defensively. They have the people to do it, where you blitz them and then you keep a spy in the middle. That was very well done. But now they're not playing Milroe. But one of the things you said, Jim, I think will be interesting. Back when Kansas City had an offense, remember teams would the way to beat Patrick Mahomes was kind of keep him on the sidelines, 3rd and 1, 4th and inches. It'll be interesting to see if they limit Penix's opportunities, if they can get that running game going.
Look, I was so impressed by what he did against Texas I'm not saying Texas is any defensive juggernaut or anything, but you have to be really super impressed. Um, I just think what he did, it shows to me that he really can be a solid NFL quarterback. Not that there were a ton of doubt about it, but I think he certainly improved his stock for sure. Let's get in our other guys here, the rest of our Bayou Bets crew, and see what they think. We got Gabe Henderson, Spencer the Guru. I want to start with Gabe. I know you have some thoughts, and Spencer even more so here. But Gabe, what are you thinking when you come into this game? What are you looking at?
It's tough. As you mentioned, I had to predict it. I've got an article coming out tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock where I make my official prediction on the score and give some analysis. I mean, as you said, Washington's got so much NFL talent on that offense. They've got the best offensive line in the country that's given up 11 sacks all season long, which is I had to sit myself down and pick my jaw up off the floor when I read that, because that is incredible in a 14-game season that they've played. And then they've got the 3 receivers who are NFL prospects. They've got the Heisman runner-up. But, at the same time, Michigan is the most talented team in the country. Jim Harbaugh, hate him if you will. I'm not the biggest Harbaugh fan either. He's a damn good football coach. He's had this team motivated all season long, and they just find a way every single game. They make it difficult. They make other teams uncomfortable, and that's what they're built for. And so, for that reason, I couldn't pick against Michigan.
Mark Satanovich, we're going to address this at the end of the show because I think Spencer has some closing thoughts on this. Michael, there was a lot of talk on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Michael Penix deserving the Heisman over Jaden Daniels. That's an absolute joke, by the way. I mean,
Crazy.
Absolute joke. I mean, whoever thinks that really should probably go feed the pigeons on Saturday nights because they're not doing any good by watching football. They have no clue what they're watching if they actually believe that. But that's a whole different story. Spencer, what you got on this one? I know you have it's in your big bucks as well. What do you think the key? What do you think the keys to victory are in this game? I want to make you give your pick till we get to big bucks. But what do you think the keys to victory are?
Well, the first key for Michigan is you got to take control of the game, control time of possession. You're going to have to run the ball a lot with Corum. J.J. McCarthy is also going to have to not turn the ball over. He's had his moments where he's been solid, but he's also had his moments where he slipped up. He hadn't been some people thought he could be a Heisman candidate this year, but he didn't really make that leap. I think he's just kind of is what he is. He's kind of mediocre, but he's got so much talent around him where as long as he doesn't screw it up, Michigan should be good. And then also, don't give up too many big plays. I mean, I like Michigan. I'll have more on it on my big bucks, but with all that talent Washington has, if they give up too many big plays, it could be trouble.
All right, let's get to our picks. It's that time of the week when we show you what happened last week. There's a lot more green, but there's still some red on here, and we do have a turkey of the week. Tom Casale again. Man.
The Cowboys are killing me.
Maybe you ought to just get a tattoo on your forehead of a turkey or something. I don't know what's going on. But we're going to start. We're going to go in the order that from worst to first from the week before. Gabe Henderson, I got to tell everybody, I think 4 or 5 weeks ago, he was the bottom of the stack here. He was last, and he's been on a roll. If my math serves me correctly, he is 12-2 over the past 3 weeks against the spread. You know how hard that is to do? And you're not lucky. If you're going 12-2, you got some really good picks. So Gabe's done a really good job. But we're going to see what we can do this week. I think we're all going to be we got 3 in the green this week. We're going to have 4 in the green this coming week. I like not all of them, but I like a lot of these picks. Let's see what we got. We're going to start with Thomas.
Yeah, and just listen, I am still hitting 70% in college basketball. So if you want winners from me, then you'll have to root for. You have to watch a Colgate Lehigh game in NFL.
I'll do it to win money.
And listen, I'm not a big believer in this team needs the game or that team needs the game, but I will say this. The Jets are quitters. They quit last season at the end of the year, and if you watch that Browns game, the amount of effort by Sauce Gardner and those defensive guys was just disgusting in that game. I'm not betting this because it might be Belichick's last game or he owns the Jets. I just think one team's trying and the other team has given up. So I like the Patriots over the Jets here on the money line. Listen, FCS football, the number one team usually routes in the championship game. Those games usually aren't close. The Jackrabbits have been the best team all year. I think they get it done against Montana. J.J. McCarthy over 196.5 passing yards. Listen, I don't like J.J. McCarthy, but as we pointed out, Washington can't stop the pass. This is more quality over quantity for me. I don't think he's going to throw it a ton, but I think he's going to hit some big plays down the field. Roma Duzier, I took over 89.5 receiving yards. The last 2 years, I've bet Michigan over Ohio State, but I've also bet Marvin Harrison over yards in those games, and he's gone over 100 both times. The thing about Michigan is the way they play defense, you get one-on-one opportunities, and they also don't see quarterbacks and receivers like this very often. So win or lose, I think he has a big game. And then I threw in a teaser. I think Gabe's Texans +5. Either way, they keep it close. I like the Bears to maybe win that game outright. So give me the +9. And then listen, I took Miami plus the 9. I think that's going to be a competitive game. We'll see what happens.
Some interesting picks on here for sure. Before I get to my picks, Tom, though, we'll tell you though, I wear a size 13 shoe. I don't know if that's good enough to be Bigfoot or not, but there you go. We'll talk about that one in a minute. But my best bet of the week is Dolphins getting 3 against the Bills. I almost did the money line here, but you know what? If they're going to give me 3 at the Dolphins at home, the Dolphins are a so much different team at home. I get they're banged up. Every Mabel on the planet is picking the Buffalo Bills. There's no way Miami can win this game. They got everybody hurt. They stink. They're not any good. Guess what? They've been inconsistent. But when it comes down to the Dolphins against the Bills, I don't think the Bills have been that great either, to be honest. They have been as inconsistent as everybody just because they had a nice little run. I like the Dolphins at home. It's going to be about 75 degrees. The Bills are going to have a weather shock when they go down there. And so give me the Dolphins, but I will take the points. Stayed away from the money line. Then I got a teaser. This is simply a numbers play. You're going to give Atlanta 9 points against the Saints. Are going to blow this team out. I think it's going to be close either way. If the Saints were underdogs, I probably would have taken the Saints in a teaser. But these games are usually close. It wasn't super close last time. I think Atlanta won by 9 or 10, but I think this will be close in the Dome, and they're fighting for a division title. I'm looking forward to this one. It should be a lot of fun. And then Kansas City against the Chargers. You're going to give Kansas City – I don't care who's starting at quarterback. The Chargers have nobody playing. Half their offense is gone. Austin Eckler has only had over 100 yards of total offense 3 times all season. This team can't wait to finish this game, pack their suitcases, and go home to their families and forget about football for a while because, honestly, they've forgotten about football for quite a while now. I think losing, 7 of their last 8 or something along those lines. Then Seahawks -3, Cardinals. This was my best bet until it went from 2.5 to 3. Look, I know the Seahawks haven't played that great, and the Cardinals have played very well, but you're talking about a game that means everything. And Pete Carroll actually does well in these sorts of games. And I just think he's going to have the Seahawks ready to go. They are as healthy as they've been in a while because actually they've been really banged up for a while. Kenneth Walker seems to be back to full strength. He looked good last week. And you're going to give me even money on a -3. I'll take my chances there. And then I changed this teaser up a little bit, and it kind of goes with what you said, Thomas. I actually had the Jets +7.5 as the first part of this teaser leg and then the under. But I backed off because of what you said. I just think the Jets they could be in full tank mode. I don't think Trevor Siemian's good at all. But give me Baltimore +10 against Pittsburgh. We talked about this in pre-production. Look, I'm not certain that Baltimore is going to win this game, but I'm certain that they're going to try. And you're talking about Tyler Huntley, who's, I think, one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. I think they're going to give it their all. They're going to play to the end. They want to win this game. They don't want to go limping into the playoffs, and especially against their rival. They'd love to get a chance to have Pittsburgh sit home for the playoffs. To have a chance to do that, they're going to go all in with this game. And then Jets, Patriots under 36.5. You want to talk about snow and wind with 2 offenses that can't do anything. Sure, Bailey Zappi's been okay, but I just don't see these teams. Do we think these teams are going to get close to 20? I don't think either one's going to get close to 20 in this game. So you want to give me an extra 6 points, I'll put that as the back leg of my teaser. And then Colts over Texans. This is simply a Mabel play for me. Everyone and their grandma. We've already talked about it. It's taking the Texans. If the Texans win this game, Vegas is going to lose a whole ton of money, and they don't lose a whole ton of money very often. I got these teams even. When they played in week 2, the Colts went into Houston and were a favorite. So I don't understand why the Texans now are favored in Indianapolis. That line doesn't make any sense to me. I think you're getting value here. I think this is a value play as well. +110 on the Colts to beat the Texans. Again, Not that I love the Colts because I've been down on them as anybody. I think the Texans are probably a slightly better team, but this being in Indy on a nationally televised game, I like what Shane Steichen's do, and I'm going to roll the dice there. Let's go to Spencer the Guru.
All righty, yeah, my best bet for this week, Dolphins Bills under. I mean, the Dolphins been kind of struggling on offense, have a lot of injuries. The Bills, they've been better under Joe Brady, but not very explosive. Stephon Diggs has struggled the past few weeks, so I don't see these offenses all of a sudden turning it on in this spot. Both defenses are playing well, so I'm going to go with the hot hand there and take the under. Because 49.5, even if they both score 24 each, that's still under. So I feel like this is a really good play there because we all know Aunt Mabel loves over. So give me the under in this spot. Also like the Ravens against the Steelers getting 4. You know, Tyler Huntley's not that bad. He's not Lamar Jackson, but he's also not a scrub. He's one of the better backups. So giving me 4 points there, I'll take those 4 against the Steelers team. They're not very good. I know they have a winning record. Mike Tomlin always gets them to a winning record, but always by the skin of his teeth ever since Big Ben retired. They just don't have the horses over there. And also like the Chiefs plus 3.5 against the Chargers. Chargers, they've quit. I mean, they've quit. That team's terrible. Keenan Allen's going to be out again most likely. Their talent there, it's bad, especially on defense. I think Blaine Gabbert will be able to do enough there, even with the Chiefs' terrible receiving core, to keep that thing close. So I will take the points. And I like Michigan to cover. I think Michigan wins by at least a touchdown. Their defense is elite. I think they'll be able to slow down Washington enough to win by that margin since McCarthy, I think, will be smart with the ball, and Corum will be able to pound the rock and control the time of possession. Where I feel pretty good about Michigan, despite Jim Harbaugh not being all that sharp a lot of times. But his talent, I think, bails him out here. And then for my teaser, I've got the Titans plus 11.5. I think they can keep that thing fairly close against the Jags, especially with Mike Vrabel wanting to make a good impression to make sure he keeps his job. And then Bengals -1. The Browns are a team that, I mean, they've been playing really well lately, but I think they put that thing on total cruise control. I think they sleepwalk through that. So give me the Bengals there -1.
Let's go to the guy who is 12-2 over the past 3 weeks, going from red to green in a big way. Gabe Henderson, what you got?
Yeah, let me just preface it with I really struggled to find picks this week, so it's teaser central up in here. And going back to your pick, Jim, I actually don't hate the Colts in this spot, especially as underdogs. As soon as that line went from Indianapolis -1.5 to Houston -1, it almost completely kept me away from playing this, but I decided to go with the teaser. I like Houston +5 solely because this game's going to be close. These are two teams that are fighting. This is a playoff game. I mean, simple as that. It's winning you're in Indianapolis between two hated division rivals. I think it's going to be close. I don't think either team wins by 5 points, so I'll take Houston +5. And then I think Jacksonville simply has enough talent to beat Tennessee. I think Tennessee last week, they showed everyone that they're checked out. I don't think Will Levis is very good. I think he's playing banged up. And Jacksonville still needs, they've really choked down the stretch. And they've let these other teams back into the division, but I don't think they're going to give it to them. I think they're going to end up winning the AFC South, and I think they win against Tennessee on Sunday. Tampa Bay and Carolina, it's almost the same thing with Tampa Bay. Over the last few weeks, they were really, really bad last week against New Orleans. Baker Mayfield's a little banged up. I'm playing this one a little safe. I think they win. As you guys mentioned earlier, it's going to be close as well because Carolina, Jim, you said they've got nothing to play for, and you're right. They've really got nothing to play for, and that's why I think they're going to keep this close. I mean, the only thing that they have right now is pride. They don't have their draft pick. They have an interim coach, and I think they're going to want to send them out in a big way, even if it's in front of tens and tens of fans. And then I think New Orleans, this is a safe play here. I think they win outright again, but I'm going to take them to keep it close against Atlanta. These games are just going to be ugly, and that's really how I feel about these first two teasers. They're division games, hated rivals. These are going to be slugfests, and I think Atlanta wants to ruin the Saints' hopes just as much as the Saints want to get in. So I like the Saints to win outright, but once again, playing it safe here. I have Cincinnati -1 against Cleveland. Spencer touched on it. And let's be honest, guys, as a Houston Texans fan, I've seen Jeff Driscoll, who's going to start at quarterback play in the NFL. He's starting for the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. he's not it. They just signed him last week. He's starting. Cleveland is mailing it in for this game. They're shifting their focus to the playoffs, and then Seattle +3 against Arizona. No matter what happens in New Orleans, I don't think they get in. Little spoiler for when we make our picks later, and I think it's because of Seattle. Jim, you said it. Pete Carroll plays exceptionally well in these games. He's going to have his team ready, despite Kyler Murray, a motivated Kyler Murray, who was named the starter going into next year. I think that's really what's kept him afloat. And I think last week, a lot of people are going to be on Arizona after they beat Philly, but I just don't see him winning here against Seattle. Michigan +1.5 against Washington. I'm covering my own butt here. I think this is going to be a close game. I think Michigan wins in the end, but if Washington does, I think it's going to be a walk-off field goal or something. These games are going to be ugly. These two teams just know how to play ugly, but they find ways to win. And then that's why I like the under as well. I think Washington defense is going to really step up, although J.J. McCarthy played a good game the other day. And I think the Michigan defense is going to be the toughest test that Michael Penix has had all year. I think they're going to get into his face, get into the backfield, and I think Washington's going to struggle to run the ball, whereas Michigan, as Spencer alluded to earlier, is going to really run the ball. They're going to control the clock, so I like the under 60. And then finally, wrapping it all up, Jim, you went with Miami +3. I'm going with Miami outright. Everyone and their mothers thinks the Bills are going to win this game. It's in Miami. Miami plays well. They've played too well this season to let that division slip, and I think they get it done at home.
Yeah, I think their defense is going to step up as well. I think they're well. We've all, it's funny how we all attacked that game a little bit differently, but all had it in some form or fashion, which I thought was interesting. I do have a question. I'll put you on the spot here, Gabe.
Yep.
I agree with everything you said about the Houston-Indianapolis game. And, again, I'm just going Indianapolis because I'm going against the public there, and I love to go against the public. It's a perfect fade the public spot. But agreeing with what you said, if you think that, why wouldn't you take Indianapolis +7?
Because I want Houston to win.
Okay.
And so this is one of those picks where I don't pick with my heart often, but I wanted to pick with my heart here. A few weeks ago I picked against the Texans just to kind of say, hey, you know what, at least I'll win a big bucks pick if they lose. I think the Texans are going to win, and I think if there is a team that's going to win by 7 or more, I think it could be Houston. I think the result in Houston in week 2 was a bit of a fluke. That's when we saw C.J. Stroud in that second half really break out, and I think even though he's got a few receivers out, I think he's going to ball out on Saturday.
I have a feeling I'm going to be kicking myself for not taking the Colts in a teaser leg instead of taking them outright, because I agree with you that I think it's going to be close. And that's actually, one of the things I want to do in the offseason is talk about how to bet teasers, because you can really make money with them. If you notice, it's all about the numbers, and it's all about playing the right numbers when you're talking about teasers and getting the right value. It's a show we may do later on. But anyway, I agree with you that one being really close. We did have one question before we move on. We had a question from Mark Satanovich on Nick Mullins back at quarterback.
Yes.
For the Vikings. That is the case. I mean, I don't know what you guys think. None of us have it. It's really too tight to call. But I think that Dan Campbell is probably going to go overboard playing his guys. I'll get your thoughts on it too. I think they're going to go out and try to prove something after last week's. They're still PO'd from the refs last week. Anybody?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Dan Campbell's an emotional head coach. Sometimes that gets the best of him. So in this spot, he better hope he doesn't pick up any key injuries, because to me, he should take it easy. But he does not know what take it easy means. That dude is all gas, no brakes. So that's why I also really like, spoiler alert for my player props column, one of my plays is Jared Goff over, I believe it's 229.5 passing yards. They kind of juiced it down because they thinking he might get pulled, but I don't think Dan Campbell pulls him. Dan Campbell's that's the kind of energy he brings. I think he's gonna make him play all 4 quarters.
I mean, this is a guy who'll go for 2 after getting a penalty and getting backed up 7 yards, and he still goes for 2, which makes 0 sense, by the way.
I think he had nothing to lose there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm telling you right now, if these coaches that keep coaching this way, and I know it's the new thing, and young guys like it because it's like playing Madden. But a lot of these coaches are coaching football games like they would play a game of Madden.
Brandon
Yeah,
Staley.
the analytics actually said kick the extra point when it went back to. So I mean, this is Dan Campbell's got his own analytics, because even the analytics community was slamming him. So that's how crazy the move was. That even the analytics guys thought he was nuts. So.
Oh, he is a little nuts, that's for sure. And then going for it, there were a couple of times he went for it early in the game when he cost his team at least 3 points early on in the game by going for it on fourth down when he absolutely had no reason to go for it. I mean, if you look at it, you can't say the sequence of events would be the same, so you don't know if it really cost them the game or not. You can't just say tack on 3 points, they would have won. It doesn't work that way. But that being said, not taking the field goal sometimes early on in the game and just being too over the top. That's why I know a lot of Saints fans love Dan Campbell because he was here. He's a Sean Payton disciple to some extent. I'm actually not a fan. I think Detroit's going to kind of go in the other direction soon. That's just my opinion, because I don't think that the way he coaches is sustainable, in my opinion. But that's a whole nother story. Before we go, we're going to give our predictions on Saints and whether they make the playoffs. Not just Saints Falcons, but give us your thoughts on whether the Saints make the playoffs. Either way, what do you like? What are their best chances, or do they just not have any chance at all? I'm going to start with you, Tom.
Yeah, I think the Saints win 23-20 over the Falcons. I think it's a close game. I think they come up a little short. I think the Bucs win a close one. I think the Bears beat the Packers, but I think Seattle gets it done in Arizona. So that's what I'm going with. I think they just come up just a little bit short. They were a little bit more consistent this year. They would have made it in.
Gabe?
I think I'm going to agree with Thomas. I alluded to it a little earlier. I think the Saints win. I think they win a close one. I think Tampa Bay wins, so getting there through the NFC South is not viable. And then I think Seattle wins in Arizona. I think I don't know if I like Chicago to win outright. I like Chicago to keep it close in that game. But, yeah, I'm going to say they fall short just because of Seattle and Tampa Bay winning.
Spencer?
I'm gonna have to disagree. I think the Saints come up short. I just don't think Dennis Allen's capable of leading this team to a winning season, because they've been so inconsistent. That's the one thing they've been consistent about, is being inconsistent. So I think they go back to struggling. I think Derek Carr struggles. Falcons defense had his number last game. I kind of see that continuing. I don't think they've shown enough to be confident in them. So even though they're at home and favored, I think they fall short. They'll keep it close, though. I don't think there's any way they get blown out, but I think they're going to fall just a little bit short. 2019 Falcons.
Well, that's good for Saints fans, because so we don't have, when we all agree on something, it's usually bad news for whatever team we're all agreeing on. So we don't have full agreement here. Look, I think that I said this in my column. I've seen this movie before. I do think the Saints are going to win the game. You want to talk about inconsistent? When it comes down to it, I don't like the Falcons. I don't think I'm picking this because I think the Saints are going to win as much as I think the Falcons are going to come in here and blow it. I think Arthur Smith's I think he might be the worst remaining coach in the NFL, and that's saying something. If they don't fire him, I mean, as a guy who wants the Saints to win a division, I hope they keep him. But I just think he's an awful coach. I think he's going to find a way to screw up that game. And then I've seen this movie before. And I said it in my column. I've been watching the Saints. I remember way back in the early 70s watching the Saints at Tulane Stadium as a kid, and it just being so cold I couldn't wait to get out of there. I will say this. Here's my prediction. The Saints win. There's about 25 seconds left in the Bucs game. They put it on the big screen, and the Bucs kick a 52-yard field goal as time expires to win by 2, and just give Saints fans everywhere just a big sigh. And then I don't even think either the other two games. I think Seattle wins fairly big, and I actually think Green Bay wins fairly big. I understand the love for the Bears, but I think when it's at Lambeau Field, I'm taking LaFleur over Eberflus any day when it counts, when it matters. I'm taking LaFleur over Eberflus, and I don't know that the Bears really care all that much. My friend JJ's out there chopping wood. Well, that's what we're doing on the show. We're just chopping wood. I'm not staying positive keep it positive, brother. Just keep it positive, Derek Carr. All right, before we go, we got our final thoughts. I'm going to go the other way this time, from right to left. Spencer, what you got?
All right, yeah, the big discussion on Twitter X yesterday was about Matt House getting fired by LSU, as far as, like, was he fired in advance or was he fired because of the bowl performance? I don't think there's much question in it. I mean, his fate was already sealed after the season. They had one of the worst defenses in the country. They wasted Jaden Daniels' Heisman season because of that. So to me, he was already going to get fired. I think Brian Kelly just decided to let him finish out the year, finish out the bowl game, let him down easy. So to me, this narrative of he got fired because of the bowl game is just silly. I know they stunk in the bowl game once again, but they stunk all year. So that's just par for the course for his defenses. So I don't think the bowl game had anything to do with it. I think it was already decided.
Spencer, you would think a guy named House would know how to chop wood, right?
Yeah, he can join the Saints staff. Get Dennis Allen. We just gotta keep chopping wood.
Maybe he'll learn how to chop wood. His name is House, for God's sake. All right, Gabe, what you got?
Our Wilson Alexander reported it. He said that Brian Kelly was looking for continuity in his coaching staff. I really think that's just something he said through the end of the transfer portal and the recruiting era, just that little time period that's so key for recruits and bringing transfers in. I think as soon as this bowl game ended, as soon as the bowl period ended, he knew. And, Spencer, you said it has nothing to do with it, that bowl game. Wisconsin had nothing on offense. I mean, they gave the guy who had like 9 passing touchdowns a career day to end his football career, because let's be honest, he's not going to play in the NFL. They had no stars out there. They didn't have any experience, and they went up and put 30 out on LSU. I think it was Matt House's time to go. I think that was the final nail in the coffin, and I think, defensive changes were needed.
Tom?
Yeah, I heard a stat that Washington has won 10 straight games by 10 points or less. That's the most in the AP era dating back to the 30s. It's interesting. They've been undervalued all season. They keep finding ways to win. We'll see if it happens Monday night. I think we're going to see a good game either way.
I will tell you this. When that game is over on Monday night, I'm going to stand up and have a standing ovation because we never have to watch this stupid 4-team crap again. To me, 12 isn't even enough. I know some people say 12's too many. They'd rather see it at 8. For me, I'm not a huge college basketball fan like Tom is, but I will say this. There is no better sporting event on the planet than the NCAA basketball tournament.
Right.
There just isn't. And I'm not saying football should have 64 teams, but I don't see what's wrong with having 32 because you'd still have some fun matchups early. Yeah, you can have some blowouts, but I think it'd be a lot of fun. At least 24 and have some kind of play-in or something. Find a way to do it. But at 12 is a start, and when this 4-team crap is over and we don't have to leave teams like Florida State or Georgia out anymore, it'll be a reason to celebrate. And that's what I'm going to celebrate when this game is over because, frankly, I don't really care all that much who wins. I'm going to watch it, but I think that 2 of the better teams was left out. I still think Georgia's the best team in the country. We'll never know. They didn't beat Alabama. They didn't deserve to be there. I'm not saying they did deserve to be there, but we won't have to worry about this anymore. Thank goodness.
I know you'll love this, Jim. I think Vegas set a hypothetical line, and they had them as 2-point favorites over Michigan.
Well, I think there's a reason for that right now. I think Georgia would have probably been one-sided. We lost time there. I think we lost them probably to some internet connections or something. But, guys, it's been a lot of fun. Looking forward to start the new year with a lot of green on the board. We will see y'all all soon. And you out there, we'll be back on the same YouTube, Facebook, Twitter channels tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. It will be Larry Holder coming on with me for the Datitude podcast. The return of Uncle Big Nick on the regular podcast. We're going to spend some time talking about the College Football Playoff Championship, the College Football Playoff National Championship. Is that how it goes? CFP?
Yep, there you go.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, CFP National Championship.
How about Michigan and Washington? I'm going to pick Uncle Big Nick's brain as he comes back. We're looking forward to that. So join us tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. And then wherever you find your podcast, don't forget to subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel so you can always find out when we're going on here. For Tom Casale, for Gabe Henderson, for Spencer the Guru, I'm Jim Derry. Everyone have a great night and a great weekend. We'll see you later.